Hey there, and welcome to today's Explainer. We're going to tackle one of the most common, yet completely invisible, traps in the modern workplace. If you're stepping into a leadership role for the very first time, I want you to consider me your experienced mentor, just pulling you aside for a quick, really crucial chat. Based on Sandeep Nair's excellent series, A Survival Guide for First-Time Managers, we're looking at a massive fundamental shift you have to make when you stop doing the work and start managing the people doing the work. You see, when you're a new manager, it is incredibly easy to mistake busyness for actual productivity. So today we're going to learn how to recognize real performance.
Picture this. You've got two very different employees on your team. Let's look at side A, the visible worker. This is the person who responds to your emails within seconds. They give you constant progress reports, and their calendar is just back-to-back with meetings. They look incredibly productive, right? Now let's look at side B, the quiet contributor. They aren't firing off digital updates all day, but they are silently resolving complex systemic issues in the background and creating really deep, long-term value. Now, as a new manager, it is so tempting to praise the visible worker simply because their effort is right there in front of you. But in doing so, you can accidentally ignore the quiet contributor whose work is actually sustaining the team.
So we've got a lot of ground to cover today. We're going to look at the visibility bias trap, how to measure true impact, the hidden costs of a performative culture, and we'll walk through 3 core management practices to help you avoid things like small win inflation and actually shift your team's culture.
All right, let's jump straight into our first major hurdle, mistaking busyness for productivity. This is the instinct to trust what you can easily see over what actually matters. So what exactly is this trap? Well, it's called visibility bias. It's basically the tendency for managers to perceive employees who appear constantly occupied or highly responsive as high performers. And listen, here is why this matters. This bias completely distorts objective evaluation, especially during performance reviews. If you equate a constant digital presence with hard work, you're creating a total illusion of high performance. Checking emails and jumping on status calls, it looks like work, but honestly, it's often just noise. As a manager, you have to make a psychological shift. You've got to stop valuing constant digital availability. Doing that not only gives you a much clearer picture of who is actually contributing, but it also prevents employee burnout because you're valuing quality results over this intense pressure to constantly be online.
There's a quote from the source material that I think hits the nail on the head. Activity reflects effort. Achievement reflects outcomes. Keep this as your daily leadership mantra. Yes, of course, effort is important. We want hard workers. But organizations do not survive on effort alone. They ultimately depend on results. Leadership requires the discipline to distinguish between someone who is actually driving the car forward and someone who is just a very enthusiastic hamster on a wheel.
So, how do we distinguish between the two? We need to talk about measuring what actually matters.
Let's compare these two sides directly. On one hand, we have visible activity metrics. Sending frequent emails, attending tons of meetings, firing off quick chat responses. These are your daily activities. They're incredibly easy to observe and track. But look at the other side, long-term impact markers, completing major projects, improving core processes, satisfying clients, reducing risks. These are the markers that actually sustain an organization. Now, why do so many managers get this wrong? Because long-term results are just much harder to measure than visible activity. Impact emerges over time. It requires you to sit down and deeply evaluate the work, rather than just glancing at who sent the most Slack messages today. We have to start tracking metrics that highlight deep work productivity over just daily email volume.
But what happens if you don't? Well, let's talk about the very real cost of a performative culture.
Getting this wrong has serious consequences. When a manager accidentally rewards visible activity over true impact, the organizational damage is profound. Think about it. If you only reward visible activity, your teams are going to optimize for appearance rather than actual contribution. You accidentally create this toxic loop. Thoughtful, deep work is suddenly discouraged because, well, it happens in silence. Instead, performative behavior gets incentivized. People literally start faking busyness just to get noticed by you. And without even realizing it, the culture quietly drifts. Responsiveness replaces effectiveness. You end up with a team that replies to your messages in 3 seconds, but takes 3 weeks to finish a basic project.
I want you to pause for a second and ask yourself this critical question. What outcomes truly matter to your team? Defining your success metrics clearly is the only way to reduce workplace confusion and kill that performative behavior. If you don't know what success looks like, your employees definitely won't.
To help you answer that, Here are some specific examples of measurable outcomes straight from the source. Is your department's true goal speed? Is it accuracy? Maybe it's collaboration, innovation, or the customer experience. When you explicitly define these criteria, evaluating your team becomes objective. Employees no longer have to guess what you want, which means they stop chasing mere visibility and they finally start focusing on generating actual value.
Okay, let's get into the actionable survival guide portion of this explainer. How do we transition to outcome-based rewards?
Here is your step-by-step plan for turning this ship around. Step 1. Define outcomes explicitly. When success metrics are visible and clear to everyone, your evaluations become significantly fairer. Step 2. Observe long-term contribution. You literally have to train your eyes to look for the sustainable value that grows quietly in the background. Remember our quiet contributor from earlier? Look for them. And Step 3. Align recognition with impact. Praise should reinforce what truly advances the team's objectives. By aligning an individual's daily goals with larger organizational objectives, you normalize prioritizing deep work over those constant, noisy status updates.
But there is a subtle trap you need to watch out for as you start doing this. It's something called small win inflation. This trips up so many well-meaning managers who are just trying to be supportive. Small win inflation is what happens when you dilute the meaning of achievement by celebrating every minor completion or everyday task as a major success. Look, recognition of hard work is great, but if you throw a parade every single time someone successfully attaches a PDF to an email, you're actually lowering the overall performance thresholds. Recognition is supposed to motivate progress, not lower the bar for excellence. It just confuses the team when basic job requirements are treated like massive victories.
So it requires a delicate balance. You shouldn't ignore incremental improvements, of course not. But you absolutely must contextualize them. Acknowledge the progress, but always place it in the context of the larger goals ahead. As a new manager, if you need a script to deliver constructive feedback when an employee confuses busyness with value, try something like this. Hey, I really appreciate the fast updates on these minor tasks today, but let's shift our focus to how this piece impacts our larger project deadline next month. See? That acknowledges their effort while immediately redirecting them right back toward the actual outcome.
And that redirection is exactly how we start shifting the team culture from just noise to actual signal. This is the long-term payoff of making this psychological shift in your leadership. When effort and impact finally align, it's a game changer. Your team learns what true excellence really means. As you establish these organizational habits, a beautiful thing happens. Once your employees realize that you value real outcomes over appearances, their energy naturally shifts. They stop wasting time trying to look busy and they pour all that energy into meaningful, sustainable work.
If you take away anything from our chat today, let it be this core piece of mentor wisdom. Great managers learn to look beyond the noise. They focus on what moves the organization forward, not just what fills the hours of the day. It absolutely takes discipline to ignore the distraction of busyness, but for sure, it is the defining characteristic of effective leadership.
So, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought. Ask yourself honestly right now, are you rewarding what moves the organization forward or just what fills the day? I highly encourage you to evaluate your own management habits the second this explainer ends. Take a look at who you praised this week and ask yourself why. Was it for activity or was it for true achievement? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer and good luck out there.